This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Imtiaz Ali from me, Hrishikesh, and everybody at Radio 1. Such a wonderful pleasure to talk to you. How are you?
I'm good, as I was when you saw me last. You have changed, I can see, but I haven't.
Size does matter. Well, we have two radio presenters in my family, and sometimes it's difficult for conversations to move away from radio when we have dinner. You have three filmmakers in your family. So how are dinner table conversations in the Ali household when the brothers get together?
It's never about movies, because in our family, it was actually not such a good thing to watch movies when we were growing up. And it's about people, it's about relatives, bitching them out and stuff like that. It's about regular things. It's never really about movies, unless we are gang up and I think we are a little emotional as people. So when we talk, we actually just praise a movie like La La Land to the sky, and we get exhilarated by just talking about it, or we just criticize the movie and tear it apart. That's all the conversation about movies. It's usually not about our films at all.
So what is the difference between Arif's approach to filmmaking and Sajid's approach? I mean, taking Lekaram Divana Dil as well as Laila Majnu as examples.
Sajid is more headstrong. Sajid is more, I think, individualistic as a voice, but at the same time, it is more difficult for him to be flexible and open to other people's ideas. Arif can listen better than Sajid, but Sajid tends to be instinctive. Arif tends to be more practical and calculating, even in the creative capacity. I feel that there are different kinds of films that Arif and Sajid would be able to do better. For instance, if there is a murder, mystery, crime thriller with 500 different angles, which is very cerebral, Arif would do it better. And if there is this one guy falling off the cliff and thinking about his childhood and angst and human feelings, Sajid would do it better.
And there's a beautiful relationship that's here between Sajid and yourself, and he says that you were almost a father figure to him. And when you used to come back home, whether it was in Jampot or in Patna, you used to tell him some really nice, interesting stories, and therein the being the father figure. You remember any of those stories that caught his attention when he was a kid?
Oh yeah, actually I used to be in theatre, those early years of theatre, when he was born and when he was growing up, and I was responsible chiefly when I was at home to put him to sleep, etc. So all the theatre plays that I would do, and all the songs especially that I would have in those plays, I would sing them out to him. More than anything else, I remember this one particular song from a movie actually. This movie is there's a song called Mere Paas Aao Mere Dosto.
Mr. Bachchan.
Mr. Bachchan sings it in his voice, inimitable. And it is from, what's the movie?
Mr. Natwar Lal.
Mr. Natwar Lal. So Mr. Natwar Lal ka ye gana hai, and I used to sing this song to him. And he used to be fascinated. Every day I had to sing this song to him. Mere Paas Aao Mere Dosto ek qissa suno. He was a small baby, and then he grew up, and for years he would have me listen to this song, and now I hear that this is the song he sings to his daughter.
Beautiful. I actually saw your short film which you had done earlier this year, The Other Way. Is it called that? I was really, really happy to see it, because it was in 14 minutes you had told a nice breezy story. Is it important for you to keep your creative genes going? I mean, not just working on scripts like Laila Majnu, being producer, being script supervisor, but in between the movies, to get your hands dirty, as it were, doing the short film genre.
Yes, of course. But what happens with me doing short films is that I'd like to do those things that I'm unable to do in cinema and in digital series. I'd like to experiment. Sometimes the experiment becomes too much. Like The Other Way is actually going the other way. It's a film that goes from the end to the beginning, and there is new learning to be had while doing such a thing, and that's the reason I did it. It's really very difficult. Once you lose context of what comes before or after, the scene doesn't make sense, and to hold a film together like that was a challenge, experiment. That's why I did it. I knew that I wouldn't be able to do it as a feature film, so I did it in a short.
See, I buy the fact that Laila and Majnu could not have been known characters, because you're dealing with an age-old story. You wanted a fresh approach, the non-star approach, but why these two in particular being those semi-unknown faces?
We auditioned. We made it fair, simple and honest, and we opened our gates for 2.5 years auditioning boys and girls. Everybody that came through Mukesh Chhabra's company, anywhere else, off the street, other casting agents, everyone was 1,000. I don't know what the number would be for especially guys, and so many girls as well. And these are the ones that we at the end of it thought collectively and individually, Sajid thought that these are the ones that we should go with. And that's because there was some innate connection between what he felt or what I felt that Majnu should be and Laila should be, and they were exactly like that. They were just like normal, regular people. We wanted it to be like that.
And is it true that the boy actually spent some time out in the wild in Kashmir because he wanted to get that whole ragged, broken, wanderer kind of look?
Yes, not only the look, Hrishi, but it's also just the abandon. If you actually went into a forest and spent even 4 hours alone doing nothing, you learn a lot about yourself, about civilization. Your mind opens up to different things. And he did that. He spent a lot of time being alone in the forest and kind of camping over there. And it gave him it's like you step out of the boundary of this world. It opens up your mind, and for an actor it's very important to see beyond what his body can show him.
And I'm glad that you're still keeping those genes alive in terms of travel and this and that. I follow you on Instagram, and there are pictures in China, in the Northeast, so you're managing to do a sufficient amount of travel, because I feel that's something which is the core of you.
How I succeed in doing it is that I try to link it with work. So there's a reason for me to go to China, so I go to China and spend more time. There's a reason for me, I was in Nagaland recently, I'm planning to go to Mizoram now, etc. and etc. So there's some work and there is some play. Yeah, but I'm really glad that I could travel as much as I can.
I also like the fact, Imtiaz, that the Laila that you've written, I don't know how the screenplay pans out, because at the end of the day, we only have a trailer to go by. The fact that she's a little flirtatious, she's a little ballsy, which I think is a nice modern twist to give her, because I don't think the previous interpretations of Laila Majnu have had that.
I think when somebody makes an age-old story, usual mistake that people would make is to think that those people were also old, that Laila and Majnu were also old. But Laila would have been a teeny-weeny kid at the time that Laila Majnu begins. No matter whether it was 1,000 years back, even at that time, the same, juices were flowing in her body. So Laila here is flirtatious. Laila here is actually saying to Majnu, a line that she says to Majnu is that, "Bahan bana le apni, kuch karta to hai nahi." So imagine that, Laila saying that to Majnu. But that's how people talk today. I mean, not that anyone has said it to me, but I'm sure that people say it all the time. And so Sajid wrote this dialogue. But the thing that moved me about Laila was the fact that at the beginning of the story, she wanted to be in love, and she wanted to go to this magic fountain and wish to get the lover of her choice without even having a lover. She wanted to be in love before she had anyone to be in love with. I feel that's such a unique and such a modern thing. Like if a story writer has to write a story today, it's like a boy sees a girl or a girl sees a guy and then she says, "Oh, I'm in love with him." Here is a girl who is in love but there's no man. Then later she looks for a guy and then says, "Oh, this is the guy," or finds a guy to fit the slot. I think that is the kind of innocence and modernity that makes Laila Majnu or Laila's character invincible and like eternal.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but even during your days of doing television, did you ever work with Balaji or with Ekta as a producer? Because I remember you doing a show for Mr. Kher, which was, Purushetra, which is a fantastic show, which our common friend Farat was also working with you on. And, there were these soaps and this and that. But Ekta and you never collaborated before this?
No, we never collaborated. We met, spoke, but it never has happened.
But why? Was there any reason it didn't happen, or just one of those things?
One of those things. And also I remember the time very distinctly where Ekta was making Hum Panch, and she had many ideas about soaps and serials that she wanted to make, and she had discussed many stories with me, and she was bubbling and bouncing in with ideas, all of which later went into television and created the storm that is called Ekta Kapoor on television. Matlab, she took every other post down. At that time she was talking to me a lot, but it could never be that I could direct one of them because I was always doing something else. And also thoughts at that point of time didn't match about which kind of series to do. I was doing Imtiaz and Purushetra, and then later I was doing films. But there was always, even if we couldn't meet on what to do together, there was always a certain warmth with which we met each other somehow. I mean, I know that Ekta and I are not supposed to be like alike in any way, but this thing is, there's a certain common warmth.
And in that aspect, I think for Sajid, it's very interesting that he gets, 3 different thought processes, ideologies, and personalities to deal with, which is Preeti and Ekta and yourself. And I'm sure he must have benefited a lot from that in terms of your individual personalities and as well as your individual experiences, which are very, very different.
Yeah. See, Preeti adds the practical touch. I think Preeti is a very essential commodity over here because I can tend to just get a little carried away, and so can Ekta in different ways though. And Preeti is very practical, that listen, at the end of the day, this is what's going to happen, you are going to come around, and this is what's going to happen. So she adds that practicality, which is very irritating for the director at times. So actually the hardcore producer of the film, Laila Majnu, is Preeti. And I am a creative resource and Ekta is a studio resource. So yes, it was very interesting for Sajid to be dealing with three people who were like I was clearly condescending and completely unfair to him, because even if I tried, I couldn't really keep distance and keep the respect on for him.
Here are you back again now this time as a producer, going back to Kashmir, which is, I know you filmed Rockstar there. I even met you during Highway because I'd come there to do a series of interviews. I saw a very different you in Kashmir. It was almost as though you were part of the environment. Which was quite fascinating for me. And I remember I'd come back and told Mocho, that our mutual friend, saying कि यार ये अलग है, मतलब he's looking quite at peace, and he's looking as part of the atmosphere. Kashmir does that to you, doesn't it?
I was getting great meat to eat every day, and there was this gentleman who used to cook 1 kilo meat every day, lamb, and then safed bajre ki roti. So that's why I was so fresh and lively and all of that. But yeah, Kashmir does that to you. There is this air of Kashmir that kind of makes you strike roots in that culture. Also, I feel about that Kashmir is a very spiritual place. Somehow, it's like if people have gone to Bhutan, they'd have a similar experience. It's almost as though there is some warmth in the air. There is a kind of a beckoning. There is a kind of a call. You feel the presence of something in Kashmir more than at other places.
I'm going to make you repeat a story only because radio audiences have not heard this story. I read it on print, where you talked about one of your early experiences in Kashmir. You had traveled to Kashmir with your dad, and how there was this gentleman who invited you home. Do you remember that incident? I think radio audiences should know about that, and why only print audiences. Narrate that story, please.
So this is the first time that I went to Kashmir, Hrishi, and my father, of course, was responsible to get us there. I had flunked the 9th standard, and I think as a measure to make me feel better about life, he took me, my 2 brothers, Arif and Sajid, my mother. We all went, and those days we didn't have too many hotel bookings, etc. Oftentimes you would land up at a place and then book your hotels. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we arrived in Srinagar and we booked ourselves into the tourist reception center, and there were hotels there, and then we would stand in the queue and there would be executives that we would talk to and figure out how to go to Sonmarg and where to stay in Gulmarg and things like that, and get the bookings, etc. In the tourist reception center was a gentleman who we befriended. He was a young man and he used to work as a clerk there. And so after we became a bit friendly, he said, why don't you come over to my house for dinner? And we said, yes, yeah. But sometimes we say in India but don't really mean it. So we thought nice of him to ask, but we won't really go. But he insisted, and then he said, which date? And then he knew our program because he was booking it. And then he said, why don't you come after you return from Sonmarg? And then we said finally that okay, we will, and give us the address, etc. And then when we were in Sonmarg and when we came to the bus depot to come back, we realized this guy has actually come all the way 3 hours into Sonmarg from Srinagar to fetch us, because he thought, what if we have a problem? And this is a guy we've never met before. It's like just 2 days to fetch us to his house, and he brought us to the house, and that's the first time we had the vazwan, man, which is the most sophisticated meal I've ever had in my life. The Kashmiri vazwan with all its frills and fancies and so many dishes. My mouth is watering now. And his whole family was there, and chiefly women, and women were so progressive in Kashmir. I had never seen women so progressive, and we ate and ate and ate because we didn't even know that it's going to be so layered and there are more things that were going to come. Finally, I remember Arif was on the floor lying down, unable to get up. He was a kid, of course, and all of this. And then he came back with us, got us a ride, came back with us into the tourist reception center, put us back into our hotels, and then returned to his house in the outskirts of Srinagar. And then we came away, and I guess we had an address that I think a couple of times we wrote letters to and got a reply from, and that was the end of it. He knew that we'll never be in touch after this in life. And of course we didn't know each other before. But this is what a normal person, a lower middle class person in Kashmir would do for a stranger. I'm sure I'll never see hospitality like this. I'm sure that I'll never see people in this world who are as hospitable and as kind as the people of Kashmir.
What a glorious example of Kashmiriyat. I'm also so happy that Joy Barua is finally getting his due. There was a Kalki Kekla film for which Mikey McCleary was doing some music, and he just called me and he said, mate, I'm sending this guy to you, Joy Barua. Do an interview, because all the mainstream guys only want to talk to the big directors, but he's fantastic. He came over, he brought his guitar along, and he blew me away with his tunes. Cut to Sameer Soni and Sanjay Suri. Called me and said, do you know this guy called Joy Barua? I said, of course, man. Mikey had sent him to me, and he was doing their soundtrack, and he came in again. And I was like, this guy deserves better. And here he is, an integral part of your album. And why it also struck a chord with me is that I know that during your university days in Delhi, you were a rock boy. You used to love going to rock shows. So Joy Barua and his effect on this magical soundtrack.
Joy is somebody I admire a lot. I think he's a very, very, very gifted music director who makes all his tunes I love. And I've hung with him a lot. His approach is very nice and very simple and very melody oriented. Also, what I like about him, the northeastern touch that he gets, the Akhomya and the northeastern touch that he gets to the music. And as far as the rock scene in India is concerned, much of it is in the northeast, where everybody is a rock star, actually. I was in Nagaland recently, and I remember Joy so much. I recently did an ad he did music for, and and he's so pure. Joy is so pure, and his melodies are so pure and so connected to the earth, that I am very sure that he'll do very well. There's a trivia about him. He's the guy who sings Tate Boi Boi Rod De in Jab We Met song Mojai Moja.
Wow.
So in Mojai Moja, all the Assamese that somehow comes, a lot of people don't find the difference between Assamese and Punjabi there, but all of that is sung and put in there by Joy Barua, because Joy actually programmed that song and used to be working with Preetham those days. So I've had a very long and fruitful relationship with him.
And here's Niladri Kumar, he's exponent of world music, the sitar, and he's built an instrument called the zitar, which is a combination of the sitar and the guitar. Again, wonderful input in this soundtrack.
Yeah, this is because of Makarand Deshpande. He invited me to watch a play of his only because Niladri was doing the music, and says, look at this guy, he's a bloody ustad, he plays cricket and he's younger than me. And I said to Niladri that, this film is coming up, would you consider doing some songs? And he was like, sir, aap jaisa bole sir, and all of that. Humility personified, but what music, Hrishi, wait till you hear it in the film. The songs that Niladri has done, man, it's unbelievable.
We're bang in the middle of the festive season. What's your favorite festival food?
My favorite, I like dahi bada in Diwali, I like pua in Holi, I like sevai in Eid, and I like kaleji in Bakrid.
How does Imtiaz Ali celebrate life?
Just by sitting around and talking to friends, having tea actually. I went to China, you come to my house, I'll give you all the teas that I have, man, it'll blow you away. So having tea and chatting with friends, yeah.
Good reason to hang with you again.
yeah.
Imtiaz, all the best, man, and can't wait to see Laila Majnu.
Lovely talking to you, Hrishi, and watch the film.